Fear and grief have once again gripped Sokoto State following the death of several villagers in a boat mishap in Sambon, Beni local government area of the state. As they fled for safety from a fresh wave of Lukurawa terrorist attack, the Sokoto State Police Command on Saturday confirmed the incident. The police disclosed that search and rescue operations are ongoing to recover the bodies of victims still missing. Now, according to eyewitness accounts, the victims were desperate villagers who had taken the waterways in a frantic attempt to escape from the marauding bandits. Despite repeated government assurance, the bandits remain entrenched in many parts of the state, mounting checkpoints, burning farmlands, and forcing rural dwellers in mass exits. Security experts have warned that unless urgent and coordinated measures are taken, Sokoto risks sinking deeper into a cycle of bloodshed, displacement, and also avoidable disaster, thus opening another chapter of violence in the north and adding to the 2,266 people killed in the first half of this year alone, according to National Human Rights Commission. But the question on the minds of many Nigerians is, why is it getting worse rather than better? What are we not doing that needs to be done to curb the growing insecurity? Should a total different approach be taken? And why is the present seem not to be helping out or yielding any major results? Undermining will spend huge amount budgeted for insecurity every year. Well, these and more as it concerns the worsening insecurity in the nation is what this edition of Dialogue will be looking at, especially as we just marked the International Day of Peace just yesterday. And that is growing insecurity, the way forward, is what we are definitely looking at on today's edition of this very lovely program. We're talking about the growing insecurity and the recent call that more needs to be done, especially as it concerns the insecurity, knowing also that we just marked the International Day for Peace just yesterday, and indeed a one that we need to really see how we can really curb. I'm talking about the growing insecurity. But anyway, as usual, to help us talk about it is no other person but a security expert, and I'm calling on no other one but I'd rather call him Mr., but he prefers I call him Comrade, so I'll call him Mr. Sam Edafe. And he's a security expert and has an M.S., especially as it concerns intelligence gathering. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, yes, it was a sad one during the weekend in Sokoto when we learned about more persons being killed on account of fleeing the madness that happened on Friday. And this is not just one story, but one too many, especially looking at this new terrorist group. We call them the Lukurawa, having their own entrenchment into the life of Sokoto residents. Now, this is not only the new terrorist organization that is now bedeviling the north. We also have the Mahmuda, which is also terrorizing Kwara State at the moment. They killed some INEC officials just recently. So it looks as if we haven't having the birth of new terrorist organization rather than we having a reduction in them. So my question now is, why are things getting worse rather than better? And I just want you to really let us understand why this growing insecurity seems to be increasing by the day rather than we putting a wedge and a halt to it.
Okay, for the benefit of those who put one once more, for the benefit of those who have not already had us talk on this platform here, these basic issues, I think I'm going to go to the basics. Let's look at how it was started.
Okay.
And you just mentioned, they are, as much as I believe, they are not actually new.
Yes.
They've been there from inception. And unfortunately, they were hiring some elements in the north to protect their own land. And unfortunately, somehow they got it wrong, and they became, instead of becoming the hunter, they became the ones that are able hunter. They became the one that will protect the people and the people who are able hunting people.
Yes.
Then now it brings us back to the fundamental, which is the basics. Are we getting it right? It's getting worse by the day. But it's not really a lose-lose situation. There has been some wins in the southeast here.
Yes.
There has been some level of
we do know.
basically in the northwest and the northeast, I think it's not yet good. It's getting worse. And I can attribute that to the fact that maybe the relative peace we had for a while has been overtaken by these bandits, and who think, and you attribute this to some factors. You can't look at some basic factors that you know what it is. We are getting close to the year of politicking and all that. So these are things that must. I know the act of terror is to instill fear and to win more grounds for themselves. So it's not totally out of place. Well, we expected this kind of thing. The only thing I expected the government in the other role and those who are saddled
with the responsibility
of governance should think ahead of the terrorists and bandits and whatever you call them. So I think so sincerely that the federal level, the federal government at the center in charge of dispensation of security measures should be able to think out of the box, because we already know their pattern. There's been a pattern.
Yeah, because that this question, we seem to know them. Now, this terrorist organization, the new, they are not relatively new. They've been there. We understand how they operate. So it beats everybody's imagination that we are still not having it right. Rather than having more terrorists go down or be neutralized, as we call it, we're having even the birth of new ones coming on board. So we'll come to the approach, because I'm really concerned. But now let's look at the impact this seems to have on Nigerians. In my last count, we had 61 companies leaving Nigeria shores in the last 4 years. Yes, we do know the forest crisis was also a contributor. But if you look at it, insecurity took center stage. And reason, many businesses are closing shop. International businesses are closing shop and leaving the shores of this now. But my next question, as we build our talk, especially as it concerns security, let's look at what impacts this growing insecurity is having on the lives of even ordinary Nigerians. Let's look at the impact.
You see,
businesses, villages are now closing shop. Businesses, we're talking about major markets, especially in the north, east, northwest. And funny enough, even the north central seems not to be thriving anymore on account of this.
Now, the socioeconomic impact on the negative cannot be overemphasized. There are a lot of things that have gone wrong in this country. And you see, until we get it right, until you start, any unstable economy, security-wise, is always on a negative trend.
Okay.
It will always propel downwards. Yes. So we need to get it right. That's only when you cannot be sure of multinationals finding their way back to this country. If I imagine me bringing basically, I want to come here to do business and I'm not secured, I'm not safe. Why would I want to come to somewhere that I'm not secured? I can't guarantee the security. Nobody can guarantee my security and the security of my workers and all that. So I think that you can't overemphasize the socio-economic impact on negative, like I said earlier. So it will come to what we should do.
Yes.
But you cannot really overemphasize. It's really, we're talking about the shortage of security for food, Look at, for instance, you see the hyperinflation trend, inflationary trend is hinged on the insecurity, because those who ought to go to farm don't go to farm anymore. There is no food production and there is no security of lives. And so it cuts across all spheres, socially, economically, and all that. So you cannot quantify, even educationally, because people don't go to schools.
We have about 10.2 million out of school children, especially in the northeast.
So its impact cannot be overemphasized. You can't downplay it in any way.
Okay, now, as much as you've talked about the impact, you're just often pushing me to really ask the fundamentals. And the fundamentals is, why are we really not getting any result? I could still remember the 2025 budget for defense is 6.11 trillion. Is the highest we've ever had as it concerns defense in this country, in the history of Nigeria. We've never had 6.11 trillion being budgeted for defense. So my question, naturally, if that much is being budgeted for defense, basically we'll feel our villages will be safe, we'll feel our rural areas will never be under threat of attacks from these marauding bandits. But rather, that's not the case. So my question is, how come we've put it, because I could still remember President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's speech when he gave that at the National Assembly, when he said the 6.11 trillion that was budgeted for defense was needed to deal with these problems. But yet here we are, how many months after, we are still struggling. how come this huge amount is not making any significant impact as it concerns securing Nigerians?
It all depends on how it is being managed and how and what is being budgeted for what you do with it and all that. Until you get it right, which is the basics. Until you get the basics right, you can even budget $10 billion and it won't make any impact. So number one, we need to get it right. Leadership, square pegs in square holes, and make sure that those who are saddled with responsibility of appropriating these funds are diligent in nature and people with high level of integrity. Otherwise, corruption, it will always, you will see.
So are you saying most of these funds are being siphoned, hence we are not getting the results?
You can't rule that out. I think one of the major problems we have as it affects the battle against insurgency and act of terror is corruption. We'll come to that basically, but I think I know basically one of the major problems we have is corruption. So until that is majorly nipped, you can't have a win-win situation.
Now, do you feel insecurity has taken a commercial trend?
It is commercial, and I think that until we know what to do, we won't get it right. And I know it's a money spinning venture for a lot of people and I know that. I mean, as much as we don't want to talk about this on air, but we have intelligence that those who are saboteurs along the line, you see that even those within the system are saboteurs because they are making so much money. The economic gains cannot be quantified, so they make so much money from it. So it has become a money spinning venture for them. So it's been commercialized. You understand what I'm saying? So you will see that they will always be saboteurs down the line. We will always make sure that this thing does not come to an end. Unfortunately, we are within the sphere of political hibernation. So we need to get Nigeria out of. And the only one way I'm going to come, it's not as if I'm going to solutions though. We need to institutionalize our institutions, make them very, very dependent and can be able to stand on their own. Not that they are being controlled by one or two factors. So I think that Nigerians should begin to ask questions when necessary. With enough of sitting on the fence, we should begin to ask those who are in the helm of affairs, what are you doing? It's like just budgeting about 6.1 trillion naira, and everybody, even the National Assembly, is that there are no oversight factions. People don't ask questions. They don't ask what the funds were done. What did you do was the funds judiciously used and all that. So it's hard time and just begin to ask questions. I don't know if our activists are sleeping. I don't know if those our pro-democratic activists, whether they are sleeping, they don't ask questions anymore. In those days, we used to get it right. People used to ask questions. We don't ask questions anymore.
So now I'm going to really ask the question, is it the approach we are taking? Yeah, because you just talk about politics. It looks as if it has a mix of all. It's now more business for some certain persons that end up shipping these ammunitions either from the borders down into our shores, or even some people are making a huge amount, especially as it concerns ransom taking. We've seen on social media many of these bandits, lords or kingpin, as they call them, celebrating huge ceremonies, all on account of cashing out. So we do understand the business. We also understand the politics you are talking about, because just 2 months ago, or rather last month, August to be precise, the Chief of Defense Staff, Christopher Musa, said the hike or the spike in issues of insecurity is all geared towards the 2027 general election. Yes, we understand all of that, but we will also understand that this did not start now. It started some years ago. It started way back, up towards the Yar'Adua era, rolled in during the Jonathan era, took a monster dimension during the Buhari era, and now is more of a big problem for all Nigerians in the Tinubu era. So it's not a problem that started now. But my question is, are we using the right approach to deal with this monster called terrorism? Is our approach, we know we are using the kinetic approach. Is the kinetic approach really working at all?
Now, I think
because we see many cases of them being neutralized.
Now, let's be very, very serious.
Yes, let's understand.
We have a very peculiar situation in Nigeria.
Peculiar in what sense?
Peculiar in the sense that it has ethno-religious inclination. There are diverse ways to this thing. I think that initially we talked about how it started, the fundamental, how it started the metamorphosis. It actually started in the Obasanjo regime, and I know that Obasanjo had a time, I think he went to see Yusuf some time ago, the young man who started the Boko Haram stuff, and he had a discussion and all that. And they were even paid. I remember Ali Bono, what is it, Modu Sharif?
Modu Sharif,
yes,
of
Borno State, the former governor of
during
Borno
1999 to 2003.
So he reached out to them. And I think Shetima did same too. And when Jonathan came, even when Jonathan came on board, during the Yaradua, I think Jonathan was able to maybe reach out. Even when they were trying to reach out to those in Niger Delta area here, they still
was also having.
So I think that was the non-kinetic issue I'm talking about, non-kinetic measures they were using to see how they can be able to manage this thing. Now that brings me to the question about ideology. Ideology, and so when is ideology? It's much more, especially when it's not faith-based, much more easy to deal with. When the people are, is a problem, we are trying to deal with socio-economic problems. It's much more easy to deal with. So we can come to the drawing table, we come to the table and, we have discussions, we deliberate and see how we can resolve it, But when it becomes faith-based, vis-a-vis ideology, it becomes much more difficult to curtail because at that level, you wouldn't understand them, So the only way we can do is to probably set up machinery, like what is obtainable in Indonesia and in Saudi Arabia, for instance. They have a more robust de-radicalization process in Saudi Arabia. They involve Islamic clerics and all that to see how they can be able to de-radicalize them, make them understand that, you come to them and make them understand that, okay, this what you are doing. It's not this is not what the Quran says, this is not what this says and all that. If they are Christians, bring the church body into place, then bring, but if it's Nigeria, now for instance, I'm going to solutions anyway. These are things we should get right. So I come back to the fundamental. Is it ideology? Is it basically out of economic gains? It is, but that's why I said Nigeria's situation is a peculiar one, because the factors that are responsible for the Nigerian situation are multidimensional. They are multidimensional. It's not just one thing like you have in global trend where we have they say, okay, this was basically because of this. Nigeria is worse than that kind of situation. So we have to have a multidimensional approach. Probably a 6-point the objective is to make sure that, okay, we bring this down. So, I'm going to go there when we go to the solutions. But that we need to look at the problems as they are. What was the reason? And now, for instance, now, in the north there, we'll talk about that. But in the southeast, we'll talk about inequality, in marginalization and all that. So these are things you will look at, So, but that gave birth to all this. So agitation can come. If it's agitation, people can be talked with. People can
just like the Niger Delta
issue, and people will, done that too. But when it comes to ideology and faith and all that, or they hinge their criminality on faith, because people can just say, okay, we are doing this based on faith. Basically, that's not it. They just hinge it. They put their.
But they have another interior motive.
The ulterior motive is to generate revenue and probably take absolute control. And the act of terror, don't forget, is to instill terror and take possession. So when they come, and it might be a long-term plan. Probably they want to come and harness a people, harness a land grabbing, or maybe take over your territory and all that. So these are just things that can be responsible for this kind of thing.
Okay, now we're still talking about why we seem not to be getting it right. Yeah, you've now talked about us starting, or this problem started with ideology, has now come into more of business. But irrespective of it, if we have a good system in place, at least even if we cannot, there's no way you can eradicate crime, but at least you bring it to the barest minimum. Now, my next question is, because if we take our mind back to 8 of these months, we saw the northern elders visiting President Tinubu and asking these same questions I'm asking you. Why is this problem not going? Why are we still having a runoff of what seems to be happening in the north, and we're now having birth of new terrorist organizations rather than having them reduced? And one of the major things I felt the northern elders also requested for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the changing of the service chiefs. They feel they've overstayed, and because of that, they seem to now be a part of the problem rather than a solution. So my question is it a matter of changing the service chief? Do we need to change our total architecture as it concerns security, bring in a new face, bring in a new drive, remove some of these persons that are now so entrenched in the issue? So will a change of service chief be the beginning of us having this? If you still remember, I'd rather take your mind back to also during the era of President Muhammadu Buhari, late President Muhammadu Buhari, he had just 2 service chiefs all through his 8 years. When even the problem was heightened way back in 2021, he still left his service chiefs. But immediately he changed, we saw relative gain and successes against these marauding bandits. So will the change of service chiefs be the beginning of the result we should have? Or you feel whether service chiefs are there, just like Ndume said, whether they are there, they are not there, the issue is beyond that. Let's understand.
Exactly. I want to tell you that is whatever the Northern Elders want to do is basically politics. They played politics. You can't hold that politics. Now, that brings us back to the yesteryears. Yes. In the era of Jonathan, we had a chief of army staff, one general, Lieutenant General Yejirika. Right. I remember what happened. He came out using the kinetic means. He came out with full force, full breach. And we knew what was happening there. What happened? They not rose up and said they are killing our people. And they were going to institute cases of
human rights
abuse against the chief of army staff there.
At Amnesty
So it's like now, okay, what you have, it has come back to witch hunt them. You imagine that if it has been annihilated then, by now, they would have been at peace. So I think the North is not being fair. I think
so. It's not a thing of changing the
service. No, it's not. I think each time you have a Northerner, a non-Northerner in governance, they try to play politics. I didn't see them meet Buhari at any point in time to ask for these kind of things, sincerely. So I feel like it should be much more than this. And I know that the root problem is more than the service chiefs. So we need to have an attitudinal change at the top level, at the level of governance. Then we must, as a people, be ready. Because it's not just basically the government alone. We should have a more robust, if we're going to solutions now, we'll now have a more robust intelligence networking amongst the, interagency community, security agency community. Then we now have to have a communal security agency intelligence gathering network. So is it that we decide to drive it in the office of the ONSA, the Office of the National Security Advisor, or we create a national, what we call a national counter-terrorism unit that is, at that level that oversees the responsibility. Understand that. So these are things that the government has to look at. Then I basically think, in my own opinion, I think that it's hard time Nigeria, has to come up with the police of the police.
The police of the police.
What they call probably the Homeland Security Network, that will now look at, because basically I told you, it's difficult for these kind of things to be happening up north without the input of
the locals.
And even security agents. So when you need to see what I mean, the commercialization of this crime. You need to see how well they are stupendous, where some of these people are. So why don't you vet them? Do a vetting, do a due diligence on this security. After a while, recall them, do your vetting, do your due diligence on them, and know their source of income, how they get it. Imagine a police officer earning those kind of properties, and without your checking. So in those days, in the days of NSO, it's difficult for a civil servant to own properties that are beyond his wages. So that's why that level of corruption was at that level. See, when we had between, I was a young man, but I knew that when Umaru Shinkafi was the DG of NSO then, they had almost a zero level of corruption. Because you're going to be asked, how did you get the car? How did you buy a car? Are you a civil servant of level 10? And your money and you didn't get a loan? So how did you get a car? So these are questions that need to be answered. We need to do things. We need to set up machineries, security agents that can police the police. Until at that level, you will continue to have saboteurs at the helm of affairs at that level, because you have a line. Let's assume, let's come like this. Let's look at it at a line down from let's assume that the head, even the chief of defense staff, is hell-bent on eradicating this. And he is not the one that will operate it at the field level. We have operational officer. So he's going to go down a line. And if there is a corrupt person within this line, he bridges it and does what we call selling out. He sabotages the line. So before the information gets to the operative, it's already been sabotaged. So that is what we need to do. And that has to be cut short. All that has to be cut short. We'll know, as I said, is that setting up a unit or maybe setting up a homeland, so that to vet security operatives, and at the same time set up probably a counter-terrorism unit that will be able to say, okay, there is no much bureaucracy when it comes to operational level of this. You just, Mr. President gives the order, and the CTU director takes it over and goes to the operation.
So it's more like just taking a model after the United States
Exactly.
of America that has homeland security.
Exactly.
That police the police.
Exactly. That's the idea. Okay. So until Nigeria get to that level where we know that, okay, people, everyone has to be accountable, we won't get it right.
Okay. Now, still talking about the Americans, because you just brought this in.
Yes.
You talked about homeland security. I could still remember on the 31st day of October, 2020, intelligence gathering made them come to rescue an American that was kidnapped in Niger Republic, but was brought to Nigeria. And they came with intelligence gathering. They rescued, after eliminating or neutralizing the terrorists that kidnapped him, they rescued him and took him away back to the United States.
That's Philip Watson.
Yes. Now, do you feel we are lacking in that? Because you just talked about policing the police. But let's bring technology, because technology was effective in them getting the precise location of where this man was, having every information on how many persons that were there that had to be neutralized to rescue him. Now, do you feel we are lacking in that? The required technologies to help go after this person. Do you feel we're lacking in that? And do you feel a change of narrative will be there when we start introducing technologies into dealing with the issues of insecurity?
Now, okay, I want to tell you something. Battles are fought by strategies.
Okay.
And the act of terror will not be any less different. You know, our strategy and tactical formations are so much lacking. You see, the operation you're talking about was one wild thing that was kidnapped by the car. They took him from Niger and brought him back to Nigeria. Now, that formation took place, and the operation was precise. You know how long that operation lasted? From the time of taking off and to the time of landing, it was timed.
Precisely.
Precisely. That is what we mean by tactical formation. You can have a good strategy when you don't have a good tactical team. It was
the American SEAL that took out that.
It was a naval SEAL.
Yeah,
it was an operation of the naval SEAL, and they came out. They did. See, you go to the drawing board and you decide all this.
Can we do that?
We can do that. We can do all that. All we need to do is to have the right operatives, and that's why I talked about, either setting up a CTU, counter. So you train them, and once they are equipped with the right technology, because this war is beyond, whatever. I know that we have our own shortcomings. That's why I said you can budget 6 point something trillion. When it's not in the right, once it's not used rightly, you get it wrong. We can do all that. I think that we have the personnel. All we need to do is to train them and get the right technology equipment. And we'll be out of this mess. So it is either Mr. President goes back to the National Assembly. Let's go to the National Assembly. Tell them, okay, we need a counter-terrorism unit. And I get a director. And you just have...
But is the National Security Advisor not doing enough to deal with all the tactical issues that seems to be there? It's a question.
Now, as much as I don't want to, impinge on the person of the answer, on the Ribadu. But you see, I think it's way beyond him. So I want to be sincere here.
Yes.
When we talked about,
I'm
sure he's one of the first, the first of his kind. It came from the
lowest cadets and the Financial Crime Department of the Nigerian Police.
This is beyond policing. This is strictly an operational thing that requires military precision, and requires military might and all that. So one has been in battle formation. You understand that each time an American, look at, for instance, late Colin Powell. I remember these are people who know their owners. They know what it is. So when they come into the office, they know what is expected. And I think when the battle is beyond a man, you can't do anything. The man can't do anything. It's like a drowning man. I feel that the battle needs to wake up and we set up scenarios that can maybe help him to build whatever he wants to build.
Okay, now I'll plead with you to hold on. We need to go on a quick break. But when we come back, we'll now talk about solutions, especially as it concerns the issue of this growing insecurity. Like I told you, yesterday it was International Day for Peace, and every need for us to talk about bringing peace back to our troubled homeland. And we're talking about Nigeria. The Northwest seems to be burning. The Northeast is also sinking deep into this crisis. The North Central, well, a place that was prized as the food basket of Nigeria, Benue State, is now having little or no meat, or rather food to eat. And coming down to even the South, we're having issues of cultism and also ethnic issues. If you go to the Southeast, where organization and IPOB seems to be taking its head, in the Southwest where we're still having issues of attack, ransom. So it looks as if the whole in the issue of insecurity. Let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll talk about solutions that need to be done, issues that need to be addressed, and what better way. Is it kinetic or not kinetic? What measures can be used in dealing with the growing insecurity?
All right, my name is Desoka, the comedy catalyst of one of Nigerian comedy.
All right, guys, back again. Yes, boss. My name is Osh, baby.
Yemi Alade.
Yeah, what up, people? It's your boy Victor AD.
Girl Niniola.
My name is my wife, Ninja Celebrity type man.
My papa say, who won't carry cow, waka go, waka follow the cow. I know the life for you.
I see you know you're watching the Atlantic TV.
Keep watching Atlantic TV.
Atlantic TV. Keep watching Atlantic TV.
Keep watching Atlantic TV.
Keep watching Atlantic TV.
Atlantic TV.
Informative, educative, interesting, entertaining.
Worldwide, international.
Don't go anywhere, I'll catch you.
Don't touch that die. Atlantic TV. Boom.
Atlantic TV. We wanna party.
Atlantic TV. Culturally inclined and uniquely different.
Well, we need to welcome you back, and we're still with dialogue today. And today we're looking at the growing insecurity and a call for a different approach as it concerns it, knowing that just yesterday we celebrated the International Day for Peace, and every call for peace to come back to this great country. You totally agree with me that things not seem to be going on well. If you look at the papers just this morning, undermining some persons were hospitalized in Cameroon. The bandits still went there to attack them. It's a growing problem that needs to be done. And we lost about 8 people on Saturday, to be precise. They were escaping from bandits' attack, and all of them got drowned. It's a sad reality and a sad one that seems to be playing out. Not just in the north, just also on Saturday, a reverend father was killed in Isuka and he was assassinated. And it's a sad tale of what the violence seems to be spreading, especially as it concerns every look and crowning of this great nation. But anyway, we're still right here in the studio, and we still have no other person but security expert, Omojefe Dafe. He has a BSc in Criminology and Security Studies and MSc in Intelligence and Security Studies, helping out to give us an insight into what needs to be done. Well, anyway, we've just laid the foundation of what the problem is and why we seem not to be getting it right. It will be out of place if we do not talk about solutions.
Yeah, definitely.
You only recover when you discover what the problem is. So, and it will be really unfair if we just seem criticizing what seems to be on ground without giving reasonable solutions to this. Now, I want us to look at non-kinetic measures in dealing with it, because for the past years now, we've been dealing with more kinetic approach. And one that I'm a bit excited about is the recent issue of having less insecurity in Kaduna State. You agree with me that when the former governor was there, Malam El-Rufai, we were having almost on a weekly basis people that were being killed in southern Kaduna. But all of that seems now to be hitting on the past. And when you look further, it looks as if it's more of the non-kinetic approach that was done by the present governor, Senator Ubasani of Kaduna State, in dealing with the problem. He said he brought everybody on ground, talked about the problem, gave them, well, the carrot and stick approach, and that seems to be working. So let's look at this. Not only that, we also do know in Katsina State as it stands, there are already big discussions between the locals and bandit leaders on account of bringing peace. Well, anyway, they might be paying a ransom for peace or be paying monies to get that peace back to Katsina State, but that seems to be working. So let's look at the non-kinetic approach. Would that not be the best way to go, knowing that we seem to have done all we can, kinetic-wise, and yet nothing's happening?
Thank you very much, Michael. I used to be an apostle of non-kinetic measures, but I've come to realize that the best way to curb it is the global. We have a global trend. Okay. We have a way we handle issues when others on terrorism. Yeah. There's a global approach, and I think Nigeria will not be left out to be able to handle this the way it is handled at the global platform. Okay. Now, that brings me back to the non-kinetic issues. Okay. When I started, I think I mentioned that from the days of Obasanjo, through Yar'Adua, to Jonathan, there were times that they went to meet with these people, they discussed with them, they had discussions. Even monies exchanged hands. We know a lot of monies exchanged hands. And now, at the end of the day, you may have a temporary relief. A temporary relief. You know, you will have a temporary relief, but at the end of the day, they will come back bigger and stronger.
So dialogue with them is not the way out.
It's not the way out. It's a full breach. It's a full breach. They have declared war against the state. And here, there are rules of engagement. You know, you don't come and bear arms against the state, you know, and begin to expect, you know. I've seen a lot of the peace meetings they had. You saw what happened in
Zamfara State. I was almost going there. When we had 40 persons that were kidnapped in the mosque after in Safa, local government area.
After a peace meeting. And you saw how they came with gadgets, they came with weapons and all that, showcasing that to them. It makes caricature of the state of Nigeria. It shows that there is no leadership in place. That's what it portends. And I want to believe that we have good leaders. It's just that maybe they don't know what to do. Maybe they're overwhelmed. But sincerely, the best way to handle it is the kinetic way. And you go out in a full breach. But let's get it right. Let's get the basics right. Number one, I'm going to talk about the solutions here now.
Yeah, please do.
Number one, we'll talk about, okay, for instance, combined intelligence gathering.
Okay.
By sister agencies. Now, in America, for instance, you have about 15 to 20 intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
We are not beneath, Nigeria is beneath of intelligence agencies. And these are, even the ones in 25 or so, 2025, you know, in America, these are just the ones you know by the periphery. There are other mafious intelligence organizations you don't know. Over 5 that they carry out operations without the knowledge of even the
other major security.
Not even, apart from the majors, even those who are, you know, there's votes that come. Just like what the CIA used to do. But then CIA used to do these jobs, but now they have left it out. You will not even hear of these organizations. As far as the national...
Okay, more like outsourcing.
As far as the Congress is concerned, they are not existing. As far as the United States Congress is concerned, they are not existing. And these ones, they do dirty job. You see, when I say the might of the American army is not even known. Because what they put out for you to know is what you know. They just put it out there. And that's why when they come with that precision. They come with that full force. They have the intelligence that you don't have. You see when they came to rescue Mr. Walton, you see what they did? They had precisions. When the CIA failed, it was taken over by another organization that was not known. So you see, they submitted everything that was happening within the camp of the Boko Haram. They knew about them. Do we have such organizations? So we need to think inwards. It's high time we remove this mediocrity thing and be able to look for how best to handle issues. Look for those who are qualified to handle these issues like this. So we look for combined intelligence gathering consisting of all the sister agencies and the locals. You can't take the locals out of it. The number 2, don't forget that there has to be operational, talking about military operational reforms. Okay. And these reforms has to be holistic, has to be fundamental, getting it right from the basics. Okay, what do we do? The reforms are, we need to change our way, our security architecture. This is no longer suitable for us. This one has been outlived. It's no longer the
useful. It's outdated.
It's outdated. Situations have overtaken it. It's just like the way you fight the conventional warfare is not the same thing like a guerrilla warfare. What the modus these bandits operate and the terrorists operate is the guerrilla warfare. They come and take and strike and go back. So the one who was used to conventional warfare cannot be able to come. So you now look for people, you train them, send them overseas, bring them back, send them to Israel, send them to America, train them and bring them back. So we need to have military reforms. The number 3, we'll talk about institutions. Okay. We'll talk about good governance. Yeah. We'll talk about socio-economic reforms.
But if those are not in place,
if these ones are not in place, it will lead credence to the top. So you don't want to give birth to, it's a trajectory, it gives birth, it's launched from there. So these are foot soldiers. Those who are recruited, basically because of socio-economic, problems we have at the foot here, they are easily handpicked. A man who has no access to 10,000 naira is being paid 100,000 naira to just go and drop something somewhere, and he does not care whether the thing blows and kills people. He will carry it out. Then, most importantly, ideological reforms. Ideological reforms. You know, at this level now, we need to get a lot of Islamic clerics. We need to get pastors, whatever, you know, Christians, pastors, we need to get them involved. So these are issues that can be handled in this, you know, these are things we must look at. If we want to have, you know, good results as it comes to the fight against the act of terror in Nigeria and you know, a fight against banditry and all that. So we must look at, and most importantly, like I said earlier, in the reforms, or maybe government, maybe get a CTU in place, or look for a cell, a security cell hinged on one platform that drives this counterterrorism. And make sure that from that level to the operational level is short-circuited.
Little or no information.
No information leaks out. So it's highly tight.
Yeah.
But you know, this one, they goes through the normal bureaucracy, you know.
From table to table.
From table to table, they drop a file from the office of the CDS to the chief of army staff, from chief of army staff to the one here. Before it gets to the theater, you know, those who are at the operational theater, it has gone through even the saboteurs. So the people already have information that even those at the operational theaters don't have. So we look at our models are outdated. We need to think out of the box. And unfortunately, like I said, Nigerians is the problem. No, we don't think before we vote. Thank you very much.
Well, anyway, yeah, you've just given us an insight into that, and I'm happy you're saying no kinetic approach doesn't work. Because we could still remember, like I said, 40 persons were kidnapped just last week from a mosque in Zamfara. This was even after we know that the governor had a peace meeting with the bandits and it did not last. It only broke down. But also we are getting information early this morning that even the major mastermind of that very kidnap, his name is Mohammed Kanikai, has been arrested by security agencies. The news is just reaching us right here on Dialogue. If we get further information, we'll keep you abreast to know whether he was really arrested or not. But leaving that and coming now to this, yeah, you've given us a full understanding of what we need to do. But my next question is, can all of this be done if we do not have a proper understanding with our neighbors?
Regional integration, we need to do that.
Now, because if we take our minds back to August of 2023, when Niger had a break away from us in what's concerned security because of the coming of a new military junta, it looks as if the security problem have just increased. All the way from August of 2023, now down to 2025, September 2025, which means that our neighbors are not working with us.
Exactly.
And most of all of these bandits seem to be coming from Niger. So how really important is it, as much as we are putting all you said we need to do, for having our neighbors on board so we can sleep with our two eyes closed?
I didn't really get it. No, you see, we need to work with our neighbors. You know, there must be sub-regional relationship. You know, we need to work with, for instance, the Chad Basin. You know, Chad, Niger, Mali, you know, we share borders with all these persons. We need to do what we call border intelligence sharing. You understand? As much as we have surveillance over our borders, you know, because our Nigerian borders are one of the most porous borders we have in the world. You know, we have, as the last counts that we knew, we had over 240, you know, access into this country that are not legal. And you understand, you know what that means.
Yeah.
So proliferation of light and small weapons, light and small arms, they come from this basin. So until you share intelligence with these people, they will just allow the weapons to be coming. So the proliferation of arms and, you know, so light weapons have to be checkmated as well. And it can only be checkmated through border alliance. And that border alliance for now, I don't think Nigeria has. We're not in good relations with Mali. We're not in good relations with Burkina Faso. We're not in good relations with Niger and all that. So within around us, we see that we already have a disconnect from the, you know, that border relationship we were talking about, supposed to have. Then most importantly also, we should think about terror financing.
Impact terror financing.
We should be able to liaise with what we call the FATF, you know, Financial Action Task Force. It is a global body, that can help to trace funds. Then we can also liaise with the Interpol, then Afripol, then even AFRICOM, the American body that helps to fight, terrorism in Africa.
Yeah.
And I think they are based in probably Niger or so. So we need to wake up Nigeria. We need to wake up and see how we can. That connectivity has to be there, with all these international bodies as well. So until we get to that level, we still have a long way to go. I don't see that thing, because I know the Chief of Defense Staff is trying so much. As I said, the Northerners, whatever they did, basically you may discover that it has some ethno-religious inclination at the end of the day. But that's just the way it is. We need to go beyond ethno-religious thinking, sentiments. Nigeria should think beyond this. And that's the problem that bedevils this country. Unfortunately, everybody thinks that if a thief is from your community, he is my thief. He's not, is our thief, our thief. So we can protect him. They can. So when they see even criminal elements who are tormenting people and all that, they try to kind of protect until he begins to act against them. Just like Zilakorowa, you see, what happened was that these persons were brought in to protect a particular set of people. Now they have gone against them and decimated them. So these are things that we must look. We must think national in our thinking and our expression and all that. I don't think Nigeria gets to that level, we may still not get it right.
Okay, well, anyway, look as if we're really getting it right here in talking about the issue of the growing insecurity, knowing that the International Day for Peace was celebrated just yesterday. But what should we really do to indeed curb this growing insecurity? And that's why we still have our guest. And I doubt if time is not a friend, but we need to thank you so much before we go. And I'm talking of no other person, but security expert. And I'm talking of Mojefe Edafe. He has a BSc in criminology and security studies, and also an MSc in intelligence and security gathering. Well, we really need to thank you so much. We might really need to bring you back here if there's any change, if there's any improvement, and to see whether some of even the ideas you've just laid bare would be instituted into dealing with the issues of insecurity. But all the same, thank you for honoring. This is your first time coming on Atlantic TV. We truly appreciate you, and we'll really be calling on you now and then just to help us out as it concerns security.
Anytime.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, anyway, that's more like a wrap today on Dialogue, and I will always implore you to please go drop your comments on our different social media platforms. They'll be with you shortly on your screen. Let's get your views as it concerns what needs to be done. Should we still continue with the kinetic approach of hitting them hard, just like the United States of America that does not negotiate with terrorists? Or do you feel we should go on a lighter note and do the non-kinetic in having that dialogue, not this dialogue we're having, but that dialogue with them, to see if they'll come on board and have a new leaf and change their ways, just like what happened in the Niger Delta when there was growing agitation, but there was every need to talk. What's your view on that? What do you feel needs to be done? But at the end, how can we get it right and get Nigerians truly secured, knowing that about 2,616 persons have been killed in the very first half of this year, which totally exceeds the 2,102 persons that were killed the same period last year. The whole of 2024, we had only 2,000 persons killed. But now, first half, we're having 2,666 persons killed. What should be done? Well, all of that, we'd love to get from you.